So 2 Kings chapter 5 is where we'll begin. We left off last time with Naaman, a Syrian who had been witnessed to, well actually his wife had been witnessed to by a young Israelitish godly girl. He went to Elijah. He at first didn't like how Elijah treated him and the way that he was going to be healed, but in the end he did it. He was healed. He went back to Elisha. He said, "Look at all these riches that I've brought to give to you." And Elisha said, "I don't need none of it." So Naaman turned around and now was filled with joy as he was heading back home, cleansed of his leprosy, knowing that he would not die from it, having great joy. And that's kind of where we pick things up. Okay? We'll see what happens here with Naaman still. He's not quite that far away yet. Verse 20 of 2 Kings chapter 5. But Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, "Behold, my master has spared Naaman this Syrian in not receiving at his hands that which he brought. But as the Lord lives, I will run after him and take somewhat of him." So Gehazi followed after Naaman, and when Naaman saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot to meet him and said, "Is all well?" And he said, "All is well. My master has sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garment." And Naaman said, "Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him, and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bare them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand, and bestowed them in the house, and he let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master, and Elisha said unto him, "Whence comest thou, Gehazi?" And he said, "Thy servant went no whither." And he said unto him, "Went not mine heart with thee, when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money, and to receive garments, and oliveyards, and vineyards, and sheep, and oxen, and men servants, and maidservants? The leprosy therefore of Naaman shall cleave unto thee, and unto thy seed forever." And he went out from his presence a leper, as white as snow. So, after Elisha had performed this miracle, we obviously, again, know that he refused the riches of Naaman. Because to take the riches would make it seem as though Elisha had done something. And Elisha was trying to teach Naaman, say, "No, Naaman, I don't deserve any riches and wealth and honor and glory because I didn't do this. It is the Lord. I just told you what the Lord's message was. I was merely a messenger." Gehazi, on the other hand, being a servant and desiring wealth of this earth more than wealth in heaven, well, what does he do? Well, he overhears that and he's kind of disgusted. He's kind of put out that his master would not be willing to take some of these riches. So what does he do? He probably waits till his master goes into another room and quietly slips out the door or tells him he's going back to his place. Meanwhile, he waits till Naaman is probably far over a hill so that Elisha can't see. And he maybe takes a roundabout way and then begins to chase down Naaman. Naaman sees the man, or maybe one of Naaman's lookouts sees the man running towards him, and they tell him, and Naaman looks back, and he says, "All right, men, stop, halt." And he thinks, "Wow, look at the speed with which this man is running towards me. Maybe something is wrong. Maybe there's been an attack on Elisha, and he's looking to me." And that would be perfectly suitable. He's a soldier, he's a leader. Maybe he could turn back around and help out. So he stops. And, "Is everything okay?" And Gehazi says, yes, everything is okay. But he said, "Well, I've got a story for you." I'm probably out of breath, or not a story, but you see, soon after you left, 2 other young prophets who are in the school of prophets, they came to visit my master, and they're very poor. They don't have much. And now my master thought, only I'd asked Naaman for a couple of changes of clothing and a little money. And so Gehazi says, look, we know you got all kinds of clothes and money. We just want a little bit. Just 2 changes of clothing and a talent of silver. And Naaman, being still probably filled with his happiness and cheerfulness, thinks, no. Not just 1 talent. Why don't you take 2 talents of silver? And Gehazi, of course, not being one to argue, thinks, all right, that's fine. We can split it between the 2 men evenly that way. All right, sounds good. Knowing full well that he's taking it for himself. Okay? So, and Naaman even goes a step further. He doesn't view Gehazi as the one that should have to carry it back, but he sends 2 of his own servants to carry the money and the clothing back for Gehazi. So they went that. When they arrived at the hill, Gehazi dismissed the intended party. I'll take it the rest of the way. You hurry up and catch your master. We don't want you to fall too far behind. There's probably thieves in these hills and everything, and you just go back to your master. I'll take it. So he took it in and probably brought it into his house, and he knew he didn't want Elisha to know about his little secret thing that he had just done here. Okay? But now Elisha asks him a question. Where were you? And Gehazi lied. I didn't do anything wrong around here. I've been here the whole time. Okay? I'm just outside around doing things. What do you think? I'm gone? And Elisha says, No, Gehazi. That's not true. My heart went with thee. In other words, the Lord somehow allowed Elisha to know exactly what Naaman had done. And so, we're beginning to see, Gehazi and how he is. Maybe he shows to be one who loves the Lord, but inwardly he's really thinking about himself, and his true self has come out here. So what does Elisha do? Well, Elisha, as punishment, says, Gehazi, that leprosy that the Lord cleansed from Naaman, the Lord's now going to give it to you and your family. So Naaman, he becomes white as snow. He's ill. He will probably die soon from his disease. And it doesn't mean that necessarily everybody, every one of his children and his wife and everybody got the plague, because they would have been wiped out. But it would have been in the descendants of Gehazi, many of them would have gotten leprosy. Maybe not right away when they're young, but when they become older or middle age, they begin to get leprosy and they die because of it. So that many of Gehazi's offspring, many of his descendants eventually get. So some of his sons and daughters probably got it right away. Did his wife? We don't know. And then the children that did live, when they would have offspring, some of their offspring would have leprosy. So it was a curse that would last upon this family, right, that God had given to them. Right, then we have another outward miracle here that Elisha does, a little different than Elijah. And that's 2 Kings chapter 6, starting at verse 1. And the sons of the prophets said unto Elisha, Behold now, the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. In other words, too small. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take thence every man a beam, and let us make us a place there, where we may dwell. And he answered, Go ye. And one said, Be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with him. And when they came to the Jordan, they cut down the wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, Alas, master, for it was borrowed. And the man of God said, Where fell it? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick, and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. Therefore said he, Take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. So, the school of prophets is growing numerically. Their building is now too small for them to all fit in, and so they tell Elisha, we need to build a new place. And Elisha agrees. Sounds like it's a good idea. And they wanted to go down near the Jordan River. That's where you would find the trees, by water. Out in the middle of the desert, you're not going to find trees, but by the water you would. So they go down by the Jordan River, and there they're chopping away at these trees and floating some of them down the river and gathering them together in a place where they can build a new prophet school. Okay? Well, one of the prophets has a problem. As he's chopping the tree, the axe head goes, probably maybe on a backswing, goes flying off the handle through the air and sploosh, right into the river. And it's in no place where you can just, I see it, and just walk out there, but it was probably in a very deep place, in a very muddy place. We know the Jordan. Naaman didn't want to go down there and wash in it because it was a dirty place. So it's probably too cloudy to be able to see where it was. So, what are they going to do? Well, this man cries out, and he begins to become sad because he's borrowed this axe. This isn't his axe. So he's going to have to pay this man back now for the axe that he borrowed. It would have been better for him just to have bought his own axe then. But Elisha goes to him and comforts him and says, "Do not fear." And so what does Elisha do? Elisha takes a stick. He asks, "Where did it go in approximately?" Elisha throws the stick out there. And by a wonder, the axe head being metal would not float in water. It floated to the top of the surface. Elisha told the man, "Reach out and grab it." And he grabbed it. And once again, this man had the axe back. And you can imagine him putting it pretty snugly, onto that axe handle so that he can continue his chopping. Or maybe even he brought it right back so he didn't have to worry about having to repay the man. No more am I doing that. Okay? So it was a wonder, a miracle, a very outward one. All right, finally we have some trouble that Elisha creates with the Syrians. 2 Kings chapter 8. So there, turn to 2 Kings chapter 8. We're skipping a little bit here. And we begin at verse 8. Okay? Verse 8. So we have a new king of Syria, Hazael. Okay? "And the king said unto Hazael," or no, it's still Ben-Hadad, right? Yeah, Ben-Hadad. Hazael is servant. "And the king said unto Hazael, Take a present in thine hand, and go and meet the man of God, and inquire of the Lord by him, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? So Hazael went to meet him, and took a present with him, even of every good thing of Damascus, 40 camels burdened, and came and stood before him, and said, Thy son Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, hath sent me to thee, saying, Shall I recover of this disease? And Elisha said unto him, Go, say unto him, Thou mayest certainly recover. Howbeit the Lord hath showed me that he shall surely die. And he settled his countenance steadfastly until he was ashamed, and the man of God wept. And Hazael said, Why weepeth my Lord? And he answered, Because I know the evil that thou wilt do unto the children of Israel. Their strongholds wilt thou set on fire, and their young men wilt thou slay with the sword, and wilt dash their children, and rip up their women with child. And Hazael said, But what is thy servant a dog, that he should do this great thing? And Elisha answered, The Lord hath showed me that thou shalt be king over Syria. So he departed from Elisha, and came to his master, who said unto him, What said Elisha to thee? And he answered, He told me that thou shouldest surely recover. And it came to pass on the morrow that he took a thick cloth, and dipped it in water, and spread it on his face, so that he died. And Hazael reigned in his stead. And in the 5th year of King Joram, the son of Ahab, king of Israel, Jehoshaphat began then king of Judah. Jehoram, the son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, began to reign. 32 years was he when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. I did that wrong. Oops. 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. Verse 8. So we'll read a short portion here. Sorry. Then the king of Syria warred against Israel, and took counsel with his servants, saying, In such and such a place shall be my camp. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, Beware, that thou shalt not pass such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called, unto his servants, and said unto them, Will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? And one of his servants said, None, my lord, O king, but Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. So, it was a common practice, rather than sending your whole army of 200,000 men, first you kind of test out the enemy, and you kind of bother them a little bit, and be a nuisance to them, maybe take out a few of their soldiers and stuff like that. And the way that the Syrians would do that is, the king of Syria, Ben-Hadad, he might tell his captain, again, sit up please, he might tell his captain, hey, take 100 men, and kind of sneakily get into, because if 100,000 men are marching, Israel's going to know about it. You're going to hear it, you're going to see it. Whereas 100 men moving swiftly through the mountains, okay, trying to find a small city somewhere that they can bother, is not going to be noticed. And that's what King Ben-Hadad of Syria would do. He would send out small raiding parties, and they would go into the towns and maybe start them on fire and steal some things and cause some trouble. And that was a common practice back in the Bible times. Except here's the twist. Okay? In the past, maybe the Lord had allowed it to happen, but not here. But what happens is that every time Ben-Hadad was about to send some of his men out, the Lord would go to Elisha and tell Elisha exactly where these men were going to go. And then Elisha would go to the king of Israel and tell him, hey, when in a couple of days there's going to be a bunch of soldiers from the king of Syria, a small band of them coming in to raid us, and it's going to be at such and such a place. Hurry, get your men into the hills around there, then when they come marching in, you can attack them and destroy them. Okay? So, several times this happened. The king of Syria would send in a small raid, and his soldiers would all die, and maybe just one or two would survive and be able to get back and tell the king what had happened. We were ambushed, king. We went in with stealth. We went in sneakily. We didn't give ourselves away. It was the best plan, and still somehow they knew right where we were going to be, and then they attacked us, and everyone else is dead, king. Well, King Ben-Hadad was not happy about that, but it continued to happen over and over and over again. King Ben-Hadad finally thinks, I know what the problem is. When I'm sitting in here in my secret war room, and I'm talking to my generals and telling them, one of these men in this room must be a traitor. He's quickly leaving, and then he's sending a message to Israel. I know that's what it is. So that's how he gets working up. And as he begins to question his men, did you do it? Are you doing it? He begins to look into their lives. The servants of one of the men says, well, O king, I know how this is happening. You see, back in the land of Israel, the Lord rules, and he speaks to his prophet. And I can be sure, my master, that whatever you speak here in your bedchamber, in your secret room, talking about what you want to do, the Lord hears that, and he is telling Elisha, and Elisha is telling the king of Israel, and that's why they are able to meet you there and defeat you. Okay? Well, that's now King Ben-Hadad has some idea. So he's afraid of Elisha. So what he says is, I know how I'll solve this problem. I will send my men out not to capture a city. I will send my men out to capture Elisha. Okay? So they find out what city he's in. He's in the city of Dothan. The men of Syria arrive at the city of Dothan in the evening, and they surround the city so that there's no way that Elisha can escape. In the morning, well, Elisha would have known this too, and he wouldn't have been foolish. He would have known what they were there for. Not only had I seen them, but maybe the Lord even revealed it to him. Anyways, here's the fact of the matter. Okay? Here's the fact of the matter. Elisha, even though he knew what was going to happen, what's very miraculous here is he goes to bed that night. He falls asleep. He gets a good night's rest. I wouldn't be able to. If I knew that there were men surrounding my house waiting for me to come outside to capture me and kill me, I wouldn't be sleeping that night. I can tell you that. I'd be tossing and turning. But not Elisha. He sleeps. He sleeps peacefully because he knows the Lord is on his side. God will watch over him. God will give him the victory. The Lord will not allow the wicked and the reprobate to have the upper hand. And so he sleeps. And in the morning, Elisha prays that God would open his servant's eyes to see the heavenly things. And the servant too saw that the mountain was full of fiery horses and chariots. Angels of God ready to do the Lord's work. Well, what happens? Elisha prays to God to make the Syrians blind. Not blind like we think of someone who's blind who can't see. But this is a blinding of their minds. They become confused. They become unable to know things. And when they do see anything, they become even more confused. They don't see reality. They see something else that the Lord has put into their minds. And Elisha left. Okay? Elisha left, and when he went out, he didn't just leave these men here. No, he was going to teach them about the God. So he led them. He led these blind men all the way to Samaria. There, then the Lord opened the minds of these blind men so that now they could think clearly and see clearly. And they notice that here in Samaria they are surrounded by Israelites, by their enemies. They could very easily be captured and taken to prison and put in death. And King Joram even wanted to do so. He's rubbing his fingers. Look at, we've caught this raiding band. Let's punish them in front of all Israel. Let's put them to death. But the prophet Elisha says, no. We aren't going to do that. We're going to let them go. They're going to see the mercy of God. They're going to see God's graciousness. And so Elisha commands them, feed these Syrians before they go, and they're fed, and then they are allowed to go. And you can imagine them running back to their families and their homes in Syria. Whether they'll go on a raiding party again or not, we don't know. I would hope they would have learned their lesson and leave the other foolish people of Syria to do it. But they hopefully learned their lesson. God forbids murder of innocent people, and so He protects these people here. Not that they're innocent of anything, but in that sense they've been brought to Samaria. They're going to be let go, and now they hopefully will be witnesses back in the land of Syria too. Okay? We can learn that too. We can see that in this story. God reigns over all. He's supreme. That is why Elisha could sleep that night. He wasn't panicked. He wasn't filled with fear like you and I would be. Hopefully, in that instance, we too could sleep a peaceful sleep, knowing that God is in control. All things are in His hands. Whatever way He works things out, it will work out for His good.